All right, so that's chewing and then salivary enzymes. All right, so remember this is where the amylase comes into action that we'll be talking about Thursday. All right, so what comes after the mouth? So this is between the mouth and the esophagus. The pharynx. All right, and then what's after that? The esophagus. All right, so what comes after the esophagus? Right, so there's the stomach, but it has to first go through the cardiac sphincter. All right, and as we just mentioned, once you pass that sphincter, then you're in the stomach. All right, so I'm not going to write down everything that occurs in the stomach, but remember that slide that we discussed what happens there. Make sure that you note that. All right, so what's after the stomach? So when food is going to leave the stomach, what does it have to go through?
Small intestine?
Right, the pyloric sphincter. All right, and once it goes through the pyloric sphincter, where are we?
The small intestine, right?
We're in the small intestine, right, but we're in the duodenum of the small intestine. All right, so remember at duodenum, that's where most of the digestion happens. So if you want to make a note here, that's where you have bile from the liver and the gallbladder going into the duodenum. All right, so I guess I can write that here. All right, so you have the gallbladder and liver bile going into the duodenum, and then you also have pancreatic enzymes.
Like beta and alpha cells?
All right. So we'll go a little bit into this also on Thursday. But remember, so you have things coming from different organs, so you have different enzymes and bile going into the duodenum, and they all mix together, and that allows for a lot of digestion to happen. All right, so what's after the duodenum? So remember, this is the first part of the small intestine. Right, we have the jejunum. All right, so remember the note for that is that's where primarily reabsorption or absorption happens. All right, and then what's the third part in the small intestine? Right, the ileum. All right, so I'll put numbers next to these. All right, so these are the 3 different parts of the small intestine. All right, so if that's the end of the small intestine, then what comes next?
The sphincter.
Right, it's the large intestine, but what's the first part of the large intestine that
Sphincter.
you can find? The cecum. All right?
Cecum?
But remember, there's something that the food, or the waste, I guess I should say at this point, has to travel through, and what is that right here? Right, that's the ileocecal valve. All right, so once we get through that valve, we are in the large intestine. All right, so what are the main parts of the large intestine that we talked about?
Ascending, transversal, descending, and then the sphenoid area.
Right, so you have ascending, transverse, descending, and then sigmoidal. All right, and then does anyone remember the last 2 parts of this?
Rectum.
Right, so we just have the rectum,
The internal sphincter, and then
we have the anal canal. All right, and then at the end of that, remember we're going to have the internal and external sphincters. All right, so if you wanted to add the last one, it's going to be the internal and external sphincters. All right, so this is the main flow chart. It should be, I don't want to say fairly obvious, right? I think you guys know how food travels through your body, but this is more of knowing the proper terms of the different parts that it flows through. So if you can remember